There is no doubt that COVID, despite its devastating impact on lives and livelihoods, has presented opportunities for African brands to challenge non-African brands. A recent survey of Africa's top 100 brands in 2021 released by Brand Africa shows that after a steady decline, African brands have stood their ground on the survey of the most admired brands in Africa. However, the survey showed that brands from Europe and North America continue to dominate demand in Africa. Why is this, and what can be done to change this narrative? Priscilla Bonsu, a Wall Street lawyer whose focus is on African businesses, joins us now to talk more about this. Hi, Priscilla. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, hello there. Thank you so much for having me.
So tell me, in what ways would you say the COVID-19 has affected the conscience of the people of Africa, and what impact has the pandemic had on African and foreign brands on the continent?
Well, as you stated earlier, foreign brands do continue to dominate the brand rankings in Africa. When the brands are broken down by origin, it becomes quite apparent that Europe leads the way again with 41%. North America comes in second at 30%. Asia is third at 16%, and Africa retains its 13% share of the market. With regard to Africa's most admired brands, it is Nike that retains its #1 spot, while Samsung is #3 and Coca-Cola comes in fourth. The Ethiopian Airlines, however, which were one of the very first airlines to resume services and to actually convert their passenger planes into cargo planes, come in at #51. And with regard to the list of brands that are perceived by the African people to have been the most helpful to the continent of Africa during this pandemic, it is the World Health Organization, unsurprisingly, emerging as the #1 brand. Governmental agencies, international bodies, NGOs represented about 20% of the brands, while private companies represented approximately 80%. And of those private companies, it is South Africa's MTN that is the leading brand, immediately followed by the Vodafone Group.
Now, how have African brands and businesses reacted to this new development, and what's the current status of the Made in Africa brand?
Well, over the past 10 years, only about 20% of the brands that Africans most admire have actually been made in Africa, even though there has been a great shift to local economies and a renewed focus on local brands. This is further reinforced by the implementation of the AFCFTA. Some African startup companies have been growing rapidly during this pandemic due to ongoing e-commerce and then social media and collaborations with African entertainers or social media influencers. And this helps boost African brands beyond their local and home market and throughout the rest of the African continent.
So what does this development mean in particular for the African financial services sector?
Well, interestingly, the same rule does not apply to the financial services sector. In fact, the financial sector was marked by an adaptation to the digital era and acquisitions during the pandemic. And yet the rankings of the brands in the financial sector are dominated by African brands, with Nigeria's GT Bank holding the #1 spot. Particularly brands from African countries such as South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya make up about 75% of the top 25 brands.
Now, with COVID-19 limiting the entertainment and shopping options, which brands are highly sought after in the luxury, communications, media, and entertainment space?
Well, the media and communication sector continues to reflect a bias towards non-African media, which overall represent more than 75% of the most admired media in Africa. During the pandemic, digital businesses such as streaming services were thriving. Netflix, for example, climbed up to number 5 in media rankings by doubling its subscriptions. And due to this rise and the rise of National Geographic, which are all accessible through South Africa's DSTV platform, DSTV is now the dominating media brand in Africa. The overall challenge for African companies, I would say, is for one, fragmentation, and two, the lack of investment. And in terms of luxury apparel, many of the luxury brands saw an improvement in the rankings, with fashion brand Christian Dior being the top winner by rising 25 slots to number 41. However, Gucci comes in first and Louis Vuitton is second. With almost no opportunity to travel during this pandemic, this increased spending on luxury can also be seen in the space of auto manufacturing, where brands like Ferrari and Germany's BMW and Mercedes-Benz, they all surged up the brand rankings on the continent of Africa.
Now, when we look at the survey of Africa's top 100 brands in 2021, Africa's share, of course, remains a mere 13%. However, the rise in entrepreneurial African brands in the top African brands list, offers a ray of hope and insight into Africa's potential best. So how can the African governments support African brands in order to compete with non-African brands on the continent?
Right. Well, as I stated earlier, I think one of the two main issues especially like in media, is the fragmentation and the lack of investment. I think at the end of the day, the most important thing that we could do is invest in local markets. We would have to invest in local brands and anything that would help local or homegrown brands to get exposure and to reach throughout the whole continent. As I also stated, the AFCTA is still being implemented. And I think it's important to have a homegrown market for those brands in order for those brands to evolve, get bigger, more seen, to get more notice, and just evolve beyond their national markets. And so, again, I think probably investments in those brands would probably take priority and would be more important, but that would mainly be the number one way to help the African brand or the Made in Africa brand.
All right, thank you very much, Priscilla, for your time with us on the program today.